Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning, Barry.
Curley.
You got Wimp with you?
He's with.
I'm right here. You were dead on it about the Heisman.
Well, I don't know about dead on that thing, but that Heisman vote pretty much every year can be a little bit maybe not confusing, but tee some people off, and I can see where the Alabama people, they love their football team, they love the players, and a lot of them are upset. But I said all along that. And over the years, I think I've coached against either 10 or 12 Heisman Trophy winners, and most of them I never wanted to see again. But in the case of these two guys, you could flip it and put Tua at Oklahoma, and I think their result would be the same. And you could put Kyler Murray at Alabama, and the results would be pretty much the same. So, I just wish people would really just enjoy watching great athletes no matter what sport. In this case, you got two of them, and I know a lot about Kyler. I thought he'd win it not because I've got a background with his daddy, played for us at A&M, and his high school coach was my football manager, Tom Westerberg, and I didn't like the GA that Jackie had signed, Coach Sherrill had signed to me. Lazy, and I just told him to go somewhere else. And I took this kid, and he wanted to be a coach, and I let him get involved in practice, the drills, etc. And he'd come to our meetings, and he was Kyler's coach, and went 43-0 as a high school starter, and I guess he's 55-1 now as a starter. He's only lost one ball game as a starter. Very special talent. Enjoy watching him play. Same with Tua. You better enjoy them while they're around. And we're looking at a kid now. I think there's only two other players, two sport players at the collegiate level that jump out to me. And Bo Jackson, football and baseball, and Barrett. The great player from Florida State, Deion Sanders. And they were two sport players, and so was this kid.
Yeah, right.
Coach, I hear people say going to this Alabama-Oklahoma game, Alabama doesn't want to score too fast. They want to go. They need to go on 7-8. But I don't understand that. If I can score every play, I'm gonna score because Alabama's still gonna run the same defense out there. Do you worry about that? How you score? I think if they'll give you a touchdown every play, you take it because your defense is gonna go out there and they are not going to run up and down the field on you. What do you say to people that say that you don't want to score too fast? I don't understand that.
Offensively, the objective is to put points on the board, whether you get 7 out of it or 3 out of it. And the third thing is to change field position. Move the ball if you don't get any points, make them have a long way to drive. So I think that's the objective. And many times you can get it in the end zone. Then the flip side of that is defensively. Your objective is to stop the people, keep them out of the end zone. I remember at Clemson, the last thing we'd put on the board in our defensive meeting, a big old circle, which meant goose egg. And we did that a bunch of times and held a bunch of people to 3 points. So whatever your objective is, you need to do it. Going back a year or two, how long it's been, Jalen Hurts he got a lot of criticism. He put the ball in the end zone against Clemson to win the national championship from about 30 to 40 yards out. And the defense goes out there, and this is getting a little bit fair what you're talking about, and the defense goes out there and can't stop them. All you got to just stop them with a minute and something left or whatever it was, and you win the game. And they said, well, Jalen, he scored too soon. That might be the craziest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
He should have fallen down.
It was a 15-yard penalty in there that killed that. The guy that made the penalty was a killer in there. A 15-yard penalty down there.
Yeah, just Alabama, great defense, a history of great defense. Go out there and stop, and you win a national championship. Don't worry about that semi-pick on the goal line.
Yeah.
But all that's good things to talk about, I guess. Score when you can.
Yeah, if I can score every play, I'm gonna score every play.
Yeah. How do you feel about a guy, not a guy, but a good coach coming to Auburn? It's in order to clear up any misconception of what's going to go on. Gus has said We're going to get a new offensive coordinator with you get into his ideas. I'm going to be calling the plays now. They left and went to Kansas, had been calling them. So I think the recruiting's really hurt because of all this. But comment on that for me.
Well, first off, you go back to the history of Gus. The majority of his coaching career, he's been calling plays, and it's his football team. He's the head football coach, and he's always been involved in the play calling. A young guy coming in will be an organizational guy that will go up. Hopefully, Gus feels he can go A through Z on the breakdowns, and for sure he'll have some input. But the best teams that Gus has had is when he has been totally in charge of calling the offense, and so that's his comfort zone. And he is the head football coach, so he can do what he wants to, and it looks like he's going back to his.
Yeah, we got to have players. He don't have any.
Yeah, he's got. I mentioned to y'all, Barry and Wimp, I think a couple of weeks ago, that when Auburn's at their best is when they got them an athletic quarterback, a guy that can run and throw it, and they got a running back there. And I know they say they're short of offensive linemen and that kind of stuff, but if Auburn ever gets back to where they got that athletic, that guy and a couple of running backs that can run it and have some of those 10, 15-yard runs, et cetera, whatever, then they'll be back a good football team. But you got to have some people up front to help. At the same time, if you got a gazelle at running back, that helps you to be a better football coach. Going back to Herschel Walker, they'd been basically at Georgia pretty close to a 6'5", 7'4" football team for a couple of years in a row, and Vince might have been in a little bit of trouble. And they signed this high school kid from a little Class A school named Herschel Walker, and they win they win a national championship. So a great running back makes those offensive linemen a little bit better, and a great quarterback does also.
Curley, Alabama in football for the second straight year in a row, the best players leaving the state. Clay Webb committed to Georgia yesterday. Last year, Ross went to Clemson. You can't get them all. I would think that staff, I think the kid's family's from Georgia. I think he's got a grandparent living over in that area. The staff probably knew it was going to be hard to get him. Do they keep working this kid to try to flip it, or do you just move on to the next one when this kid commits to Georgia yesterday?
I think they keep working because there had to be a relationship there and a motivation for that kid to have committed to Alabama. So, you never know what controversial situations might pop up and that kind of stuff. I think they keep working him because you had a relationship with him, a good enough relationship that he wanted to go to Alabama. So you keep working those. At the same time, Barry, what you've got your list there. And everybody knows what an unbelievable job that Coach Saban and that staff does. And so there's probably not a lot of difference between those top five guys at that position. Alabama's going to recruit the nation, and so there's not much difference. If you lose one, you go to that next one. There's not much difference.
Yeah, you can't get them all. I think Dad said it earlier. I mean, if Alabama goes into Georgia and gets one, nobody really ever says anything. But, man, if somebody comes in here and gets one that Alabama wants, it's like everybody just cannot believe it. So I guess that's just where your program is.
Yeah, and, with his ties in Georgia and that kind of stuff, there's always that situation a little bit that could come involved. Plus, it's right there next door, and Alabama's going to always get a few out of Georgia. But it is a great state for high school football players.
Yeah.
Curly, there's not a right or wrong way to get ready for the bowls. I think Coach Saban is 9-4 or something. I mean, Coach Bryant struggled like a Dickens, and I don't think it's coaching. There's so many variables in the thing, and when you're playing, and now we've got kids dropping out and not wanting to play, and we're playing with 40-something bowls. Were you ever around anybody that did it the right way in bowl preparation?
Well, the start with as long as I can ever remember, the bowl is a reward for the players. And, of course, I know this day and age you got teams that win 6, but still it's a reward for those players, and that's what the game is all about, is the players. It should be. But I think ever how you handle your bowl practice, I know that we always thought that the best way to do it, you got to motivate the importance of playing a game. If you're going to play a game, you better play it with all you got, because this is a very physical sport. But your bowl practice, you can make it fun for them. You're going to get all those extra reps, and you're going to work the older players on the game plan and that. And then you take those young pups, the ones that hadn't played very much, or the ones you redshirted them, and when regular practice is over, you line it up there, and they're excited to get after it, and you keep them out there a little bit longer and have you 15, 20, 30 play a little scrimmage or maybe longer, and you do things for them, and naturally you're going to feed them good and all that, but you try to create a positive atmosphere and do some motivational stuff for those players. But you're going to always have a few that they're looking at that NFL or that next level and that kind of stuff, and they get to protect themselves and being hesitant about what you're doing. That's when you're going to get hurt. And I just think a true football player, he plays the game, and when it's time to go play, I'm going to line up and play and play with all I got. And that's old school football, but it's 100% the way football should be played this day and age.
I think this new redshirt rule can help maybe these teams get the preparation. Usually you get like you said, the redshirt guys, and
somebody.
Now you can play them if they haven't played those 4 games. I don't know if many people said, let's play them 3, but that way we can really work him, and let's play him in this bowl game and see if he can play because we got to find out now. I think that rule is really, really good for the bowl games if those guys hadn't played over 4 yet.
I talked to a young man the other night at the basketball game. Tammy's little niece, Heather, plays 3 sports and all that, but I'd met this kid back several months ago, and he was at the gym up at Brooks High School, Cameron Stutz, a good-looking freshman offensive lineman at Auburn, and just super character, nice kid. All you ever get out of his mouth is yes or no, sir, and I asked him, I said, I know you played in 1 game, and I think he's played in 2, and I said, no, I know you're excited about bowl practice. He said, yes, sir. And so he really feels that he's going to get to play in the bowl game, and he's one of those young linemen at Auburn that might be part of their future. But he was super excited what you're talking about, Barry, the bowl practice, and hopefully he can get in there for some more snaps. So there's an example of what you're talking about.
Wait a minute, now he goes to Auburn?
Yeah.
They don't count real well at Auburn. Tell them make sure he hadn't played in 4.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you something. That's one of the reasons that, and Barry's right, one of the reasons you might want to hold out somebody in order to play in a bowl, really he can play the whole game in both quarterback or anybody, especially a quarterback. But when you can't count to 5 or 4, that you got trouble.
Yeah.
And not that Martin is going to be that good, because I'm not sure he's that good anywhere, but he's going to leave because of it, and they don't need anybody to leave. But I think having a skilled player left to be able to play in a bowl game is a huge thing for your team.
I promise you that, because a lot of these kids that come in there as a true freshman, just in the orientation and getting used to the speed of the college game, et cetera, the size and how physical it is. But as that kid goes on through that year, scout team and whatever, and getting reps, maybe certain practices during the week where they work them a little harder, and all of a sudden this young pup, he gets a little bit better and a little bit better, and encouragement from the coaches, and all of a sudden 12, 13 games later in the bowl game, they say, you know what, we need to get this kid on the field more in our bowl practice and situations, and let's give him lots of snaps in this bowl game, because he is part of our future. So, Wimp, you're exactly right. It is a great plus for that young freshman pup that's got ability, and all of a sudden it starts coming out in him. It's always there, but it's a different game from high school to college.
Anything else, Barry?
Yeah, I had something I was going to ask him, and it just left me. Ask him one more question. It just left me. It was a good question, too.
Something I want wanted to mention to you, I don't know what the point spread at. What is it? 14, 17 points, Alabama.
14.
I can't remember. But you go back.
14.
If you go back in the recent history, as dominating as Alabama has been, there's one type offensive football team that has given Alabama a few headaches, and that would be A&M with Manziel, Ole Miss with their athletic quarterbacks, and when Auburn had athletic quarterbacks, other than just Cam, that created a little bit of problem, and and I don't think Oklahoma can slow Alabama down, but that type of offense, quarterback that Oklahoma's got can give Alabama some problems. So that's something to think about, and hopefully Alabama has solved that athletic quarterback situation for this big game. And
I think that's exactly right. Athletic quarterbacks have something that Alabama's not as comfortable with as other people. They don't like that much.
Yeah, there's all those games, and those are the teams that's had those kind of players, dominating players, that's given Alabama some trouble. But I still go back to an area we've talked about before, and Alabama might have improved a little bit in the kicking game the last game, but still, if they could ever get it dominating, then you can lock the doors and shut it down. Put Alabama a complete team in offense, defense, and the kicking game. And that could be a deciding factor.
Coach Saban's been out, saying, I guess with the championship game, then you play 15 games. That's just about as many as you can play as far as just with schoolwork and beating these guys' bodies up. Could you see them if they go to the 8-game playoff, Curley, to where they reward the top 4 seeds with a home game? So one would play 8, one would play at home, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5. And then you get it down to 2 bowls. Don't play a championship game. If you did that, it'd be the same number of games. It would be 15. Is that a better way to do this, or do you like the system we have now?
Well, I think down the road it might be better, but I don't know how much time I got. Do you remember I mentioned years ago Coach Bryant came up with an idea, and this would be way down the road to kind of separate and create a super conference. If you had a situation right now where you had Conference A, B, C, D, you could either do it with 18 teams in each one of those divisions. You could do it in 20. Then you split that in the subdivisions within, for example, Division A, you got 10 on one side, 10 on the other side. They all play each other. Then you play 1 or 2 from the other divisions, B, C, or D. And you have, just like you do now, you have a conference championship game. Then you come out of there with 4 winners, and then they play each other. And Coach Bryant was right on for the discussions that we've got right now. And some people not happy with it, some people are happy with it, but that solve all the problems. And you could do it with 18 teams in the north, south, east, west, whatever you want to call it. Split them, or you could do it with 20. And so he had something in mind years ago that if they had ever adapted it and gone with it, and it had been something in effect for many years. But I don't know. I think eventually someday, Barry, what you asked is they're going to enlarge it, whether they go to automatic 5 for the first 2 and the 4 other ones play each other, then go from there. But something someday will change, but it's way down the road, I think.
No doubt. Thanks, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Y'all stay warm.